Okay, open your eyes, look down. What?
I like the format of the book.
It's clean. It's very like organized.
So, wrote this book. One of the most common things that people remarked on was my choice of a 2-column layout. So if you look here, the book, it's laid out in 2 columns. And people asked why I did that. I did that for 2 reasons. One is called the visual bite. The visual bite is how much language a person grabs and processes. We don't read, obviously, letter for letter, but we don't even, for the most part, read word for word. That's the visual bite. The other factor is the movement from the end of a line to the new line. So it's the new line movement. So we have a visual bite and new line movement. Managing visual bite across a long line is a little bit taxing. Then there's the new line travel, right? So that new line movement, when you have to find the new line, the greater the distance between the end of a line and the new line, that distance creates uncertainty, right? So if it's a tiny, tiny distance, then there's almost no uncertainty. But when the distance is long, there's a little bit of uncertainty. And every single time you experience uncertainty, finding a new line, you are fatigued. And so that's why people stop reading. People stop reading because of cognitive fatigue. And so when you can unite visual bite and the new line movement, you make a book less fatiguing. So that's why this book is laid out this way. You'll notice that pleasure reading is always printed in a smaller profile. So you get pleasure reading, fiction, that's printed narrower because you actually have less new line fatigue. Marketing agencies did research to determine what is the least interrupted format for reading. It turns out that narrow columns are the best format. You can basically read straight down a column in a newspaper. You don't have to move left or right. You can go straight down. And that means you can absorb information with less friction because there's no difference between the visual bite and the carriage return, right? That new line. The reason that most books are not published with a 2-column layout is that it's more expensive. It's marginally more expensive, but publishing companies are gambling on hundreds of books, and they know that most of those books are going to completely flop. Now, I've got one book. I'm betting, everything on this one piece. This is where I've put my best thoughts. This is what I deeply believe in, and I want to give you the greatest possible product. I want you to have the least friction in absorbing this information. And so I chose the layout structure. Lots of typographic decisions went into this book that make it more easily read and absorbed. So that's why I chose the 2-column layout and a lot of other little things that I chose, such as the margins, like why the outside margins are so wide and the bottom margins are big. It's because we have thumbs, and lots of people like to read with their thumbs on the bottom, and there's just nothing interrupting their thumbs. So this understanding of typographic decisions, the reason for a 2-column layout, the reason that margins are proportioned the way they are, that did not come from me doing research just to make this one book. I've been helping creators in the social and ecological space for years. I bought an independent print shop in 2009, and since then I've been really learning about these typographic decisions. One of the big projects that comes to mind is the Ballots Building Power project, because it involved 6 different very, very academic case studies of grassroots efforts on 3 issues. So there was 2 case studies apiece in different parts of the country on housing, criminal justice reform, and medical reforms. And the research and the work that needed to be presented in order to convey the takeaways for the general public were really dense. And the authors of this study did not want their work to only go to academics. So I was contacted to help them make their work more absorbable. I came up with a color scheme for them, a type scheme, everything I could do in order to make their work more absorbable, anything I could do to facilitate grassroots organizers seeing this work and wading through the dense academia of it in order to get the takeaways that would help them do their grassroots organizing work. right? So that's a lot of what I do for clients, and I've brought that understanding and that experience to bear in creating and structuring this work. So that's just a little bit of background on some of the typographic decisions that were made for this book. I want to make it so that there's as little friction as possible, because there are some big ideas in this book. There's some difficult concepts, and I try to do the best I can to make them all really absorbable. So some information on why the typographic decisions in this book were made. Thank you.